What's good, guys? Alex of Sypno Tech. How are you doing? It's a huge day today, September 12th, 2017, because the future of technology has arrived, or according to The Verge, at least. Uh, the Apple event where they announced a few new iPhones, actually 3 new iPhones, and a couple of different products that we're going to talk about. But this event every single year is very, very hyped up. We basically know everything that's going on because all the leaks. The Apple iPhone 10 was announced, the iPhone 8 and the 8 Plus, which essentially are iPhone 7Ss, but they just call it the iPhone 8, which I don't understand. But we'll talk about that stuff in a bit. Let us first just go through the launch. So they introduced a few products today. The Apple Watches. We're not going to need to talk too much about the Apple Watch. I don't really even think it's worth talking about. But just to touch base, the Apple Watch 3rd generation now has both LTE compatibility and non-LTE compatibility. So you can use it with or without a phone number. You can use it like a 1st Gen 1 or 2nd Gen 1, or you can use it like what you would use a Samsung Gear S3 for. So that is basically the biggest change for the Apple Watch 3, and also has a little red button now to classify the distinct hardware differences. But the main story is the iPhone 10, which they saved for the one more thing, which Apple has made notorious. I actually do think that was worthy of the one more thing. But before we talk about the iPhone 10, let's talk about the two forgotten ugly sisters in this launch, which is the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus. I don't think they're ugly. I'm just using it as a analogy of what really is happening, because they announced the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, and then within a matter of seconds, nobody was talking about the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus because everybody was talking about the iPhone 10. That's just what happened, which is a bit ridiculous in my opinion. But the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus are upgrades of the iPhone 7. And they will both feature the Apple A11 processor, which is a hexa-core chip, and it's also the first time Apple has designed their own GPU or put their own GPU together. The first phone that they've ever done that. So it's going to be interesting to see if it's as efficient as before, or if it's performs about the same, if not better. We are also looking at a GPU that is 30% faster, using half the power. They say this stuff all the time. It's marginal differences at best. I don't really notice much of that. Then we are also looking at minor differences. They are using 5.5-inch and 4.7 displays for the Plus and for the regular iPhones. They also say that the phone is now using Qi wireless charging due to the fact that they are both glass phones now. They both have a mixture of aluminum and glass. So glass in the front and the back, we've been seeing that on smartphones for a while now. So Qi charging is great. I'm kind of disappointed that some phones like this one, the HTC 11, does have a glass back, and yet they don't have Qi charging on there. So Apple never is. They haven't really been innovating, but they always refine things, and they always make things good. And once they do that, the industry follows in suit, and that becomes like an industry standard. So hopefully Qi charging becomes an industry standard, because Google tried to do that with the Nexuses early on, and then Samsung tried to do that, and it just really hasn't caught on. Like the other makers like HTC or Sony, like they just haven't really gotten onto the Qi charging stuff. So if Apple does it, I hope everybody follows suit and this becomes an industry standard, like Google tried to envision that a few years back. So that's pretty exciting. The iPhone 8 also have a new Apple, they call it Apple's True Tone displays, which are the same as the iPad Pros. So I have not used the iPad Pro extensively, but I only played around with it a little bit. And the displays on those are really great. So hopefully the colors and all that matches that. I'm going to have to take a look at that. But that's what Apple claims. And most of the time, Apple products are pretty much what they describe it as. So that's always good. The iPhone 8 Plus has a different camera than the iPhone 8. It actually has dual sensors, a 12 megapixel one and another Oh, I'm sorry. It has two 12 megapixel rear sensors, and the iPhone 8 only has one megapixel, one 12 megapixel camera on the iPhone 8. So there is a difference this year in the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus, which I am not a fan of. It seems like smaller phones are becoming extinct. Smaller phones are becoming budget phones. It's been like that for a while. Like Sony combated that for a while with the compact line having the same processor. Apple's doing that, at least in the processor range, but the cameras are different. So I'm a little disappointed that you're not getting the same package at a same internal package in a smaller body, which people like me who have smaller hands appreciate. So the cameras are going to be different here, and we can't do anything about that. They both also do support optical image stabilization, which is a good thing. So, Apple has always done really good with the cameras. So that is the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. Now we're going to move on to the one more thing, the thing that nobody knew, or no, was never hidden. It's probably the most reported on rumor mill thing in the world. The Apple iPhone 10, the X. It kind of reminds me of the Sony Xperia X, but the iPhone X, iPhone 10, sorry. iPhone 10 is, where do we start here? The iPhone 10 is a mixture of a Mi Mix, essential phone, Sony, I guess you can say Sony. It's interesting because it has a near bezel-less display, which we've been seeing. This is a general trend that we've been migrating towards this year in 2017. And this actually reminds me a lot of the Essential phone. The Essential phone has less top camera bezel. And the reason for that is because Apple claims that they need that space because they have a lot of sensors in there for the Face ID, which we'll talk about in a second. But it looks a lot like the Essential phone. Gone now is the fingerprint scanner. No home button like the ones on the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. The iPhone 10 does not have a fingerprint scanner, does not have a home button. You have to navigate the iPhone through different gestures, so people will have to relearn how to use iOS. That's going to be interesting to test out because that is something that Apple users, once again, are not accustomed to. They've been using a home button for so long. So on screen, there's not even on-screen buttons. It's on-screen commands. So on-screen swipe commands. You swipe up to go to your home screen. That might how would that interfere with certain apps if you're playing a game where you need to swipe up from the bottom or swipe on the bottom? Would that interfere? Would you automatically go home on accident or vice versa? I'm really interested to see how that works and how Apple's software optimizes that, or are they going to tell app developers, hey, don't use the bottom half of the screen or bottom quarter of the screen? I highly doubt that's the case, or they're going to do that. I have some strange confidence in Apple. For some reason, I do feel like Apple has everything refined and that it's going to work out really well. So removing the fingerprint scanner and the home button and going with a swiping motion to go home, I feel like it's going to work, but I'm interested to see how it's going to work, and I want to kind of figure that out. So I'm really excited to test that out. If I ever get one, $1,000, I can get 3 different phones or 2 different flagship phones for that price. Let's talk about the specs. It's going to start at $999 for 64 gigabytes. There will also be a more expensive one with 256 gigabytes. The same goes for the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. They will both have a starting model of 64 gigabytes, I believe. And the starting price for them is $699 for the iPhone 8 and the $799 for the iPhone 8 Plus. And those will ship on September 22nd. You can buy them on September 15th. So back to the iPhone 10. The iPhone 10. So the iPhone 10 is an expensive phone. And, this design is not revolutionary. We've been seeing this for a while. What is somewhat different is the facial ID stuff. We've seen that before. Once again, Apple is not making anything revolutionary. We've seen all of this before. It's just Apple, once again, they refined things. Like the fingerprint scanner, they refined it. They weren't the first ones to do it, but they made a really good Touch ID. That's what Apple's known for, right? They're not known for being innovators, or at least not within the last 6 years or so. They're not known for being first to the market. They're known for kind of refining things. And once they refine it, it becomes an industry standard, and everybody else follows and and makes that into industry standard. Whereas Android's a little bit fragmented and everybody is doing their own thing and developing new technology, but not incorporated in all of the devices, which is a bit of a bummer as an Android user. But the iPhone 10 is a mixture of a bunch of Android phones, which is okay, which is good. But the facial thing, I have high hopes for. They say it's a 1 in a million chance that someone will hack it because it recognizes your face. And so this is the interesting thing because the Samsung one on the S8 wasn't as reliable as, it wasn't reliable at all with a lot of people. There's a lot of videos out there. You can hack that pretty easily. Um, I, I, I don't have proof yet for the iPhone 10 because obviously I'm not at the event. I haven't touched it. I haven't tried it out. But I actually have high hopes for this. I actually do feel like Apple will follow through what it claims. And I do feel like it's going to be pretty difficult to hack, and I think it's going to be pretty good. Um, yeah, it's just a hunch. I just feel like this is going to be the facial sensor that works. The Face ID is going to be the one that starts the trend of removing the fingerprint scanner for your security, your login, and all that stuff, and using facial recognition. It's coming. It's already started. It started a couple years ago, but it's here now, and I think Apple will follow through and make this into an industry standard thing, and it's going to be workable. Like one thing that the S8 that we've noticed when we were reviewing it, I talked about it with Abe on our review video. It's not that reliable. You have to pull up the phone to recognize your face, and you have to hold it for a second. A couple of Chinese brands did that even before Samsung did it, and it was just never truly reliable, something efficient. If what the iPhone claims, what Apple claims the iPhone 10 can do is really that efficient, where you don't really need to just recognize you through any light source, any darkness, and unlock your phone. That is revolutionary. That is really good stuff. And I have a little bit of experience with camera sensors in my day job. So if they were able to compact all that facial recognition sensors into such a small package, that is pretty darn impressive. I'm talking about like the highest level of stuff. If it really does what it claims and not just haphazardly like some of the other phones that have attempted it. So yeah, they have something called a flood illuminator, infrared camera, front camera, and a dot projector in that little bar tab there at the top, and that's why they needed that space. Whereas the Essential phone just has a front-facing camera, that's why it's much more narrow. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works out, how apps look with this little black bar and it kind of curves around. The Essential phone is just a little curve, and people were already kind of complaining like, "Oh, it looks so funky," but the iPhone 10 has a long stretch, so that'll be interesting to test out for sure. One more cool thing about the facial recognition system, you can transform your face into poop and talk. It has a 5.8-inch 2436 by 1125 pixel display, so I do believe this is the highest quality iPhone screen we've ever seen. It uses the Apple A11 Bionic chip, and that is what is powering that facial recognition software. So that is definitely the thing to check out with this device. Because, okay, let's be honest. Like, the screen thing, that's cool, but LG's done it. Samsung's done it. Xiaomi's done it. Essential phones out there now. Like, this whole near bezel-less thing is not revolutionary. I'm sorry, like Sharp had one a couple years ago too. Like the Aquos had something similar. So this is for the majority of the iPhone users who are seeing this for the first time. Yeah, they might think this is amazing. But if you've been following tech, this doesn't excite you too much. It's the facial recognition and the Qi wireless charging that really gets your blood pumping. Because if this pans out, this thing could really push us forward into the next generation of phones. The iPhone 10 goes on sale for $999 starting price on October 27th and ships in November 3rd. So that is coming soon. That's actually coming pretty fast. The iPhone 8 and 8 Plus will be out before the iPhone 10, but I don't think anyone will buy the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. That's the ugly stepsister of the iPhone 10, which this naming stuff doesn't make sense. They skipped the 9. It's not even supposed to be the 8. The iPhone 8 and 8 Plus are basically 7S and 7S Plus, but they named it the 8. So it doesn't. I don't understand what they're doing. Maybe they're just doing generation gaps now. But the 10, what are they going to name it next year? The 9 and the 11. So, oh, it's kind of weird. 9/11. Anyway, my name is Alex from Sypno Tech. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know what you guys are excited about, what you are going to buy. Are you going to buy the iPhone 8, 8 Plus, or the iPhone 10? And I will see you guys in the next video.
If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, hit the bell button below so that you don't miss a single video in the future. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!